Carl Jung, How to Realize Your True Potential in Life. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Have you ever felt like there's something powerful inside you waiting to be awakened? In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we explore Carl Jung's transformative insights on how to realize your true potential and live a life aligned with your deeper self. Jung's concept of individuation isn't just philosophy. It's a practical guide for anyone seeking clarity, purpose, and wholeness in a chaotic world. As you watch, think about your own life. Are you truly becoming who you were meant to be? Comment below with your thoughts. And don't forget to share your journey with us as we grow stronger together. 1. Know yourself to discover your true potential. Important decisions in life, whether it's choosing a career, navigating a crisis, or walking away from something that no longer serves us, require more than just logic. They demand deep self-awareness. Without truly understanding who we are, we risk making choices that leave us unfulfilled and disconnected. But when we know ourselves, our needs, values, strengths, and desires, we naturally align with paths that feel right, almost effortless. These are the moments when we begin to tap into our true potential. Carl Jung believed that this inner clarity isn't something we're born fully aware of. It's something we must uncover. He called this process individuation, a journey of becoming whole by integrating all parts of ourselves, both conscious and unconscious. Individuation is not about becoming someone else or striving for an ideal. It is about recognizing and reclaiming the truth of who you already are. This form of spiritual wisdom reminds us that we are not broken. We are simply incomplete until we acknowledge and unify the many dimensions within us. When we start to live in alignment with who we truly are, we experience something extraordinary: flow. We begin doing things that feel natural, energizing, and deeply satisfying. What once seemed like hard work becomes a joy. This is often a sign that you are walking in your purpose. For some, it may be in the realm of creativity. For others, it's teaching, healing, organizing, leading, or nurturing. These gifts don't require force. They reveal themselves when we stop pretending and start listening. But this inner alignment doesn't happen by accident. It requires courage. It means confronting the parts of ourselves we've ignored or rejected: our shadow, our past wounds, our hidden fears. Jung saw the unconscious as a powerful force that holds both pain and possibility. When we engage with it honestly, we don't just become more self-aware, we become more alive. Our decisions carry depth. Our relationships become more authentic. Our sense of purpose strengthens. Individuation is not a single event, but a lifelong unfolding. It's a spiritual excavation, layer by layer, revealing the sacred architecture of your inner world. And the more you uncover, the more your external life begins to reflect this internal truth. Suddenly, the things you used to chase begin to chase you. The energy you once wasted on fitting in is redirected into becoming fully yourself. Life begins to cooperate with your clarity. This is the essence of spiritual wisdom, not just knowing facts about the psyche, but embodying truth through lived experience. It is recognizing that your potential is not found in someone else's blueprint, but in your own unfolding design. Jung's philosophy shows us that real power is not about control or achievement. It's about alignment. It's about allowing your inner truth to shape your outer reality. The question is no longer, What should I do with my life? But who am I becoming as I do it? When you live with this awareness, decisions become simpler. Opportunities feel more aligned. And your life, instead of being a series of forced steps, becomes a natural dance with your own spirit. This is not just a psychological transformation, it is a spiritual one. Have you ever taken time to truly get to know yourself beyond labels and expectations? If so, share what you've discovered about your true path in the comments below to inspire others. If not, comment, "I will begin." And let's walk this journey of self-awareness and inner potential together. 2. What is individuation? According to Jung, individuation, according to Carl Jung, is not a trend or a self-help buzzword. It is the very essence of your personal evolution. It means becoming whole by integrating the hidden, subconscious parts of yourself into your conscious personality. Jung believed that real transformation doesn't come from pretending to be perfect or chasing external goals. It comes from facing what's within both the beautiful and the broken and choosing to live in alignment with your true nature. This process is ongoing, often uncomfortable, and deeply rewarding. In modern life, we are taught to look outward for answers. Social media, career pressure, and cultural expectations constantly tell us who we should be. But deep down, many people feel disconnected. They may have achievements and recognition, but feel empty inside. Jung understood this. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That means the very things you avoid or suppress your fears, your shadow, your forgotten dreams, end up controlling your choices unless you choose to face them. Take the example of Mia, a talented designer who always felt restless in her career. Despite her accomplishments, she battled anxiety and a persistent sense of not enough. In therapy, she explored her recurring dreams, visions of a locked room, a crying child, and an empty stage. With guidance from a Jungian psychologist, she began decoding these symbols. The locked room represented her untapped potential. The child symbolized her repressed creativity, and the stage reflected her longing for self-expression. As she gave voice to these parts of herself, something shifted. She began writing again, not for success, but for healing. Her inner life started to align with her outer world. That's individuation in real time. Jung emphasized that individuation isn't about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you've always been beneath the masks, roles, and conditioning. It involves reuniting with the parts of you that got left behind: your intuitive wisdom, your childhood passions, your unresolved pain. It requires you to be honest with yourself and embrace contradictions, strength and softness, logic and intuition, ambition and stillness. Jungian philosophy goes beyond childhood trauma. It recognizes the influence of myths, archetypes, and cultural forces that shape our inner world. Individuation draws from the wisdom of ancient stories and modern symbols, urging you to discover meaning in your present life. You are not just healing wounds from the past. You are uncovering the blueprint of your soul. This work, though subtle, rewires the way you see the world and yourself. The beauty of this journey is that it invites you to stop fighting your inner conflicts and start listening to them. Every emotion, every fear, and every impulse has a message. Instead of suppressing or judging them, individuation teaches you to welcome them with curiosity. Over time, this leads to emotional clarity, self-respect, and a sense of grounded spiritual wisdom that no external achievement can offer. Through individuation, you step into a deeper awareness where you no longer live on autopilot. You begin to see how your patterns are formed, how your wounds speak, and how your intuition whispers truths that logic alone can't access. You understand that healing is not about becoming flawless, but about becoming whole. And in that wholeness, you find peace, not because life becomes easy, but because you are no longer fragmented inside. Are you ready to explore the path to wholeness? If so, comment below. I will integrate to affirm your commitment to inner transformation. Let's grow together on this lifelong journey of becoming who we truly are. 3. Don't let the world define you. Carl Jung once said, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you don't know, it will tell you." This isn't just a philosophical musing, it's a warning. Because the moment you stop defining yourself, the world rushes in with its own definitions, expectations, and labels. Without a strong sense of self, you become vulnerable to manipulation, shaped not by your truth, but by others' desires. Over time, this leads to frustration, inner emptiness, and a haunting sense that you've abandoned something sacred within you. To break free, you must begin with self-reflection. You have to ask yourself honest questions. What do I value more, security or freedom? Am I drawn to routine and predictability? Or do I flourish in spontaneity and risk? These preferences are not superficial. They are the blueprint of your authentic self. And when you begin to uncover them, you start walking the path Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating every hidden part of who you are. This isn't about chasing perfection. It's about becoming real, becoming whole, becoming you. Individuation is a kind of spiritual awakening. It marks the moment you stop performing for the world and start listening to the quiet voice within. That voice has always been there, waiting patiently beneath the noise of culture, family, and fear. When you honor it, you no longer ask for permission to be yourself. You give it. You stop saying yes to what drains you and start saying no without guilt. You begin to choose, not because of pressure or programming, but from a place of inner clarity. As this awakening unfolds, you become grounded. You stop being easily swayed by trends, opinions, or validation. You realize that your truth, even if misunderstood, is more valuable than conformity. The world might still try to define you, but it won't succeed because you've already done the work. Your boundaries become firm, your decisions aligned, your energy unmistakably your own. You become the author of your life, no longer a character in someone else's story. And there's a ripple effect. As you grow more authentic, you unconsciously give others permission to do the same. Your presence becomes a mirror, quietly challenging others to confront their masks. You no longer need to prove anything. Your very being becomes the proof. You radiate wholeness, and people feel it. Some will be drawn to you, others intimidated, but no one will ignore the strength of someone who has come home to themselves. This is the deep truth Jung wanted us to understand. The world only controls those who have not yet claimed their inner authority. When you know who you are, truly and deeply, you become untouchable, not because you resist the world, but because you've outgrown its attempts to define you. That is the power of spiritual awakening. That is the path of the self-realized soul. If you're ready to stop letting the world define you and start living from your true self, comment below. I choose authenticity. Let this be your first step toward inner clarity and freedom. 4. Embrace your passions and face the subconscious. As Jung once said, a man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. These words carry a deep truth. Whatever you suppress within you, your desires, fears, unresolved wounds will not disappear. Instead, they settle deep in your subconscious, quietly influencing your thoughts, your decisions, and even your physical health. Suppressed passions are not dead. They become shadows alive, restless, and seeking expression through your behaviors, relationships, and reactions. This is not just a psychological phenomenon. It is a profound reflection of spiritual wisdom, reminding us that what we refuse to face will continue to control us. People often try to run from their inner chaos by avoiding emotions they consider dangerous: shame, grief, longing, rage. But in doing so, they build walls between themselves and their true potential. The human psyche was never meant to be split. Your healing begins the moment you choose to stop hiding and instead begin listening to what your subconscious has to say. One of the most accessible ways to do this is through journaling. Writing without filtering your thoughts allows emotions to rise from the depth of your inner world into conscious awareness. Each word you write is a thread pulling hidden truths into the light, slowly unraveling the tangle of repression. Dream analysis is another key. Your dreams are not random. They are symbolic messages from the unconscious, sometimes wild, sometimes disturbing, often profound. Jung believed that dreams reveal the hidden content of the psyche, the unspoken emotions, the forgotten memories, the unmet needs. When you pay attention to them, write them down, and reflect on their meaning, you start to understand parts of yourself you've never met in waking life. Symbols in dreams act like mirrors, showing you what your conscious mind refuses to see. And in seeing them, you begin to heal. Healing also means slowly and consciously confronting what scares you, not in one dramatic act of bravery, but in gentle, consistent steps. Avoiding your fears only deepens their grip. But when you face them bit by bit, you take back your power. If you feared rejection, write a letter to the part of you that was hurt. If you felt abandoned, recall where that wound first formed and give it the compassion it never received. These actions may seem small, but they are deeply transformative. They allow the fragmented parts of your being to reintegrate into a stronger whole. This is the heart of Jung's process of individuation, the journey of becoming whole by embracing both the light and the shadow within. It is not a path of perfection, but of authenticity. It demands courage, presence, and the willingness to stand in the fire of your truth. But on the other side of that fire is something sacred, your true self. That is where real peace lives, not in suppression, not in avoidance, but in the deep harmony that comes from self-acceptance and inner integration. This is the essence of spiritual wisdom, to understand that every part of you, even the ones you tried to silence, are part of the divine blueprint of your awakening. If you're ready to heal by embracing your true passions and facing what lies beneath the surface, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's walk this path of transformation together, one insight, one breakthrough at a time. 5. Define who you want to become. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." This truth holds the key to personal transformation. When you live defined by your past, by pain, by betrayal, by disappointment, you surrender your power to what has already been. But when you decide who you want to become and consciously walk toward it, your past loses control over your future. The unconscious no longer repeats the same cycles. Instead, your life becomes a reflection of intention, not reaction. Jung believed that without a clear inner vision, the unconscious would keep recycling old wounds. That's why so many people end up stuck in the same kinds of toxic relationships, self-doubt, or destructive habits. It's not fate, it's repetition without awareness. The past becomes a loop, and you play the same role over and over until you decide to become someone new. Growth begins when you ask, not "what happened to me?" but "who do I now choose to be?" That's the moment you reclaim authorship over your story. In today's world, where external validation constantly shapes self-worth, it's easy to forget that you're the one holding the pen. But those who dare to define their future selves often discover a power they didn't know they had. Like Maya, a woman who kept attracting emotionally unavailable partners. After years of confusion and pain, she stumbled upon Jung's words, and something clicked. She stopped asking why it kept happening, and instead asked who she wanted to be in love. She wrote down her values, envisioned her emotional boundaries, and slowly rewired how she responded to connection. Her energy changed, her choices changed, and for the first time, love felt safe. That wasn't luck. That was conscious self-definition. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom teaches us that transformation is not about erasing your past. It's about illuminating the unconscious parts of yourself that were running the show. It's not enough to want change. You must define it. You must name who you're becoming and act in alignment with that identity every single day. Even in the small moments, like how you speak to yourself when you fail, or what you tolerate in your relationships. Your actions are always casting a vote for the version of you that you're becoming. When you define yourself consciously, you begin to notice that your reality shifts. The people you attract change. Your energy stabilizes. Opportunities start to align. Why? Because you're no longer being pulled by the unresolved weight of your unconscious. You're being pulled forward by a vision. That is the spiritual path Jung offers, not just self-awareness, but self-creation. There's freedom in realizing that you are not fixed. You are not your trauma. You are not your lowest moment. You are the one who decides who emerges from all of it. Every day is a canvas. Carl Jung didn't just give us psychological tools, he handed us the map to inner liberation. Define yourself, not by what broke you, but by what you now choose to become. That is how you awaken, not just psychologically, but spiritually. If this message spoke to your soul, say it with faith. I choose who I become. My past does not define me, my vision does. If you're ready to break free from old patterns, like, subscribe, and comment below. I am becoming who I was meant to be. Let's walk this path together. 6. Give up addictions, including idealism. Carl Jung once said, "Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol, morphine, or idealism." This may sound extreme, but when you look deeper, you'll understand why idealism, something often praised, can be just as numbing as any drug. Addiction isn't just about what we consume. It's about what we use to escape reality. While some drown their pain in substances, others lose themselves in fantasies of how life should be. Idealism, when unchecked, becomes a psychological escape. It convinces us that if things were only perfect, if people behaved as we expected, if the world aligned with our visions, we'd finally be at peace. But life doesn't work that way. And when the world inevitably fails to meet those ideals, we collapse under disappointment. Instead of facing the messy, imperfect truth of our lives, we build castles in the sky. We tell ourselves stories to avoid taking action. We postpone healing by waiting for better conditions. That's the danger. Idealism paralyzes us with perfection. It whispers that nothing we do is good enough yet. So we wait. We plan. We imagine. But we don't move. And this is where spiritual awakening demands something radical. Honesty. The courage to face what is, without the need to dress it up. Jungian philosophy is grounded in the idea that true transformation only begins when you bring unconscious patterns into conscious awareness. That includes shining a light on the subtle ways we run from ourselves, like hiding behind noble goals, spiritual personas, or perfect visions of the future. Spiritual growth isn't about chasing a flawless life. It's about becoming whole. That means embracing your wounds, your doubts, and your fears, not burying them under spiritual ideals. Your potential is not found in what you wish life would be. It's unlocked in how bravely you face what it already is. There's a difference between having a vision and being addicted to a fantasy. A vision is rooted in reality. It acknowledges your current challenges and shows you a path forward. It empowers you to act. A fantasy keeps you stuck in avoidance. It soothes your ego, but never feeds your soul. One leads to growth. The other leads to stagnation. The question is, which are you following? Take, for example, the many people who dive into spiritual teachings but avoid therapy, self-reflection, or inner work. They know all the right words. They repeat affirmations. But beneath the surface, they're still carrying wounds they refuse to confront. Spiritual awakening isn't about appearances or beliefs. It's about embodiment, living in alignment with truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to wait. You just need to start. Let go of the dream that everything must align before you take action. Let go of the belief that you need to become someone else before you're worthy of peace. Come back to yourself. Come back to the moment. That's where all power lies. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights on transforming hidden struggles into true strength and learning how to break free from not only harmful habits, but even the illusions that hold you back. 7. Be honest about your capabilities. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." These words cut straight through the illusions we often build around ourselves. In a world where it's easy to project an image, this quote invites us to strip away the noise and look at the essence of who we truly are, not by our words, but by our repeated actions. Spiritual wisdom begins here, in the raw honesty of self-reflection. You can speak of ambition, passion, or potential, but until your daily behavior reflects those intentions, they remain just ideas floating in the mind. Most people are disconnected from this truth. They overpromise, underdeliver, and then wonder why they feel stagnant or misunderstood. But every time you act in alignment with what you say, you build a bridge between your inner world and the outer reality. You earn trust, not just from others, but from yourself. That self-trust is what unlocks real transformation. Look back on your past. Where did you follow through? Where did you fall short? This isn't about guilt, it's about clarity. Your history holds valuable data. It teaches you your true capabilities, not the imagined ones you told yourself you had. Jung's philosophy teaches that real self-awareness requires us to integrate these truths, to hold both the light and the shadow, and to become whole. If you've ever declared a dream, maybe starting a business, writing a book, or healing a relationship, but failed to take the consistent steps, then you felt the weight of that misalignment. It creates inner conflict, spiritual noise. But when your actions begin to reflect your intentions, something powerful shifts. That's when spiritual awakening begins to deepen. You no longer chase a version of yourself, you embody it. The small daily actions become sacred rituals of self-becoming. You evolve not through leaps, but through consistent, honest steps forward. Being honest about your capabilities doesn't mean lowering your vision. It means honoring where you are so you can expand with integrity. It means making promises only when you're willing to back them with commitment. When you live this way, people feel it. They trust your presence. They respect your word. And most importantly, you begin to trust yourself. That trust becomes fuel for expansion, healing, and conscious evolution. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that the universe responds not to wishful thinking, but to vibration, your energy, your actions, your alignment. Every time you embody what you value, you send out a signal. I am ready. I am true. I am whole. And life, in turn, mirrors that truth back to you through aligned relationships, opportunities, and experiences. In this sense, integrity becomes magnetic. It pulls toward you everything that matches your authentic frequency. So stop hiding behind potential. Step into the version of yourself that takes quiet, consistent action. Let go of empty declarations. Begin where you are, with honesty, with presence, with the courage to match your word with your walk. Because that is where the path of real transformation begins. Not in saying, but in doing. Not in illusion, but in alignment. Not in the idea of who you could be, but in becoming who you already are when you finally act like it. If this message has stirred something within you, comment below. I choose honesty over illusion. I act with integrity and truth. 8. Turn weaknesses into strengths. Carl Jung once reflected, I regret many follies which sprang from my obstinacy, but without that trait, I would not have reached my goal. What others call a flaw, he saw as a hidden strength. In Jungian philosophy, every part of your personality, even the ones that seem troublesome, contains the potential for transformation. That stubbornness, that sensitivity, that emotional depth, you've been told to suppress those very qualities, when understood and redirected, become keys to unlocking your true potential. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that the path to growth doesn't lie in erasing parts of ourselves, but in learning how to work with them. A trait like sensitivity, often dismissed as weakness, is in fact a deep source of power when channeled properly. Sensitivity fuels intuition, creativity, compassion, and spiritual awareness. It allows you to feel what others cannot, to connect on levels beyond words. In a chaotic world that rewards detachment, the sensitive person sees beauty others miss. But without understanding, this gift becomes a burden overwhelm, emotional exhaustion, withdrawal. Jung's insight was that we must bring our unconscious traits into the light and integrate them into our conscious identity. That's how we become whole. This is the essence of individuation, the lifelong journey of self-discovery where you recognize the patterns, wounds, and strengths hidden in your psyche and weave them into your evolving self. Instead of trying to be someone you're not, you embrace your full nature and grow from there. A modern-day example is someone who has always been labeled as too intense. Maybe they think too deeply, feel too much, or care too passionately. But in the right environment, a therapist's chair, a creative studio, a mission-driven organization, that same intensity becomes clarity, depth, and passion. It turns from liability to leadership. The shift comes not from changing who you are, but from realizing who you were always meant to be. Many of us spend years trying to fix ourselves, to tone down our energy, to fit in. But Carl Jung's teachings offer a liberating alternative. Understand yourself. Know what energizes you, what drains you, what excites your soul. When you recognize how your inner traits interact with the outer world, you stop being at war with yourself. You begin to live with authenticity and alignment. Even the parts of you that once caused chaos can become tools for healing, not just for you, but for others too. This is spiritual wisdom in action, not an escape from the self, but a reunion with the self. In this reunion, nothing is wasted. Your quirks, your contradictions, your emotional storms all become sacred material for growth. The ego wants perfection. The soul seeks wholeness. Carl Jung reminds us that the path to your highest potential is not paved by rejection, but by radical integration. What once felt like a weakness may turn out to be your greatest strength. If you're still with us, comment below. I'm turning my weakness into strength. Your words mean more than you know, and help us grow this space of healing and transformation together. 9. Find a connection to the infinite. Carl Jung believed that every human being holds a deep, inner longing for connection to something infinite, whether we call it God, the universe, the future of humanity, or simply a higher power that surpasses our limited sense of self. This isn't about religious belief in the traditional sense. It's about psychological survival. Without a link to something greater than ourselves, life becomes hollow, the soul restless, and suffering unbearable. Jung understood that a meaningful life must be rooted in something eternal, something that transcends the temporary goals and identities we often cling to. This longing for transcendence is not a weakness. It's the beginning of spiritual awakening. When people feel lost or stuck in life, it's often because they've been disconnected from this sense of deeper belonging. Modern society pushes achievement, consumption, and self-image, but it rarely nurtures the soul. Jung saw that true healing, true wholeness, comes not from chasing success or avoiding pain, but from integrating all parts of ourselves, including the parts we've hidden or denied, and placing our lives in service to something larger. This process of inner transformation, which he called individuation, helps us uncover our authentic self and align it with the infinite. You don't need to follow a religion to experience this. Even those who consider themselves non-religious can feel the sacredness of life when they dedicate themselves to future generations, to the earth, to truth, to love. Spiritual awakening often begins when we stop numbing ourselves and start asking the deeper questions. Who am I beyond my job, my appearance, my past? Why am I here? What am I meant to serve? These questions invite us to step beyond ego and into soul. Jung warned that people who lack a connection to the infinite often become overwhelmed by anxiety, depression, or despair, not because they are weak, but because their soul is starving. He reminded us that the human psyche is not designed to function in isolation. We are meant to participate in the great mystery of existence, to feel that our actions ripple into eternity. As he wrote, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. That light is born when we remember that we are not alone, not meaningless, not random. Connecting with the infinite gives you strength that logic alone cannot explain. It teaches you to endure pain with purpose, to rise with grace after failure, and to face uncertainty with trust. It gives your life a sacred rhythm, a guiding principle that grounds you even when the world feels unstable. You begin to see your story not as a random event, but as a meaningful thread in the tapestry of existence. You awaken to your essence not as a separate ego, but as a living soul, intimately linked to all things. This is spiritual awakening. It's not about escaping life, but entering it fully with awareness, reverence, and courage. It's about realizing that your deepest desires to love, to grow, to serve, to be free are not distractions from your path. They are your path. To affirm your connection to something greater, declare it with intention. Comment below, I am part of the infinite, to honor your journey and inspire others to seek deeper meaning in their own lives. 10. Embrace solitude for deep reflection. Carl Jung once said, "You must be alone to find out what supports you when you cannot support yourself." In solitude, we are stripped of distractions, left only with our thoughts, emotions, and essence. It is here in the stillness that our true needs and passions begin to surface. Without the noise of the external world, we start to recognize what genuinely brings us peace, what activities ignite joy within, and what paths align with the deeper calling of our soul. Solitude acts as a sacred container, allowing space for truth to rise. When you sit quietly and listen, the soul speaks, revealing what you may have ignored or suppressed in the rush of daily life. This silence becomes a mirror. It reflects not only who you are, but also who you are not. In these quiet moments, the illusions built from society's expectations start to fall away. What's left is raw, real, and often surprising. You begin to notice the subtle pull towards something meaningful, perhaps a creative expression, a spiritual practice, or a sense of purpose you hadn't given time to explore. That pull is not random. It's the whisper of your soul guiding you back to alignment. And this alignment is the essence of spiritual wisdom, an internal knowing that moves you toward your authentic self. The process is not always easy. Sitting in solitude can stir discomfort. Old wounds, hidden fears, and unfulfilled desires may rise. But Jung teaches us that we cannot become whole without facing these inner shadows. Solitude doesn't just offer clarity, it offers transformation. It is the quiet fire where fragments of the self begin to reunite. You start to integrate the parts of yourself you've rejected, abandoned, or hidden. This is how true healing begins, not by seeking outside approval, but by embracing your inner world with honesty and compassion. As this transformation unfolds, you discover a new strength. You no longer depend on others to define your worth or direction. You begin to support yourself from within, guided by insight rather than impulse. This resilience becomes your foundation, one that no external storm can shake. You realize that peace, fulfillment, and purpose do not come from outside validation, but from deep self-connection. You carry within you the compass to your highest path. Solitude simply clears the fog so you can see it. Spiritual awakening often begins in these quiet encounters with yourself. The more you allow stillness into your life, the more you reconnect with your truth. You don't have to escape to a mountain or monastery. It could be 10 minutes of silence each morning, a walk without your phone, or journaling at night. What matters is presence, listening inwardly without judgment. Because in that silence, you remember who you are beneath all the noise. And once you remember, you can begin to live not from fear, but from inner wisdom. As you continue on your journey to realize your true potential, remember that the path to self-discovery begins within. Carl Jung taught us that by integrating the hidden parts of ourselves, we move closer to wholeness and a life of true meaning. Let this message inspire you to look deeper, live more consciously, and never stop growing. If you found this video valuable, please like it, share it with someone who needs this message, and don't forget to subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Tap the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming insights into the soul, mind, and spirit. Your journey has just begun. When the body goes silent, the soul speaks, the truth behind abstinence. In the silence of the body, the soul begins to sing. This ancient truth, echoed by mystics and psychologists alike, reminds us that what appears to be emptiness is often the birthplace of deep transformation. As Carl Jung taught, when we withdraw from external distractions, the unconscious finds its voice. In today's video, we'll explore the profound spiritual awakening that often follows periods of abstinence, not as deprivation, but as a sacred return to the self. Have you ever experienced a moment when silence revealed something powerful within you? Let us know in the comments below. And if this message speaks to your journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, your space for inner growth and soulful insight. 1. The silence of the body is a spiritual awakening, not a loss. What appears to be absence, abstinence, or emotional withdrawal is often misjudged in a world obsessed with stimulation. But when a woman chooses to step away from physical desire and external validation, she isn't diminishing herself. She's returning home. She's not disappearing into emptiness, but expanding into a deeper presence. The silence of the body is not the end of intimacy. It is the beginning of self-intimacy, where the soul is finally allowed to speak after years of being drowned out by noise. Carl Jung believed that all repressed energy must find new expression. So when the body is no longer fixated on instant pleasure or emotional approval, the soul seizes that moment to rise. This isn't suppression, it's transmutation. And in that shift, something sacred occurs. Energy that once ran outward now flows inward, illuminating forgotten corridors of the psyche. Women in this space often report heightened dreams, sharper intuition, and spontaneous spiritual awakening. These are not anomalies. They are echoes of the truth that the soul has been waiting to be heard. Abstinence, then, becomes a spiritual threshold, not a denial, but a rebirth. It is in the absence of touch that one discovers the untouched parts of the self, the sacred terrain that was never meant for anyone else to reach. In this silence, the feminine spirit reclaims its wholeness. It begins to explore depths that were previously buried beneath layers of longing and distraction. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that this inner quiet is not passive. It is profoundly creative. It is where the soul regenerates, remembers, and reveals. As the outer world fades into the background, the inner voice gains clarity. What once seemed like loneliness transforms into sacred solitude. What once felt like emptiness reveals itself as spaciousness. And within that space, something ancient awakens. This is not merely psychological. It is energetic, cellular, ancestral. It is the unraveling of generational scripts that taught women to measure their worth by affection received rather than presence embodied. When the body goes silent, the soul becomes the author. It writes not in words, but in sensations, visions, and deep knowledge. This is the terrain of individuation, where the false self begins to dissolve, and the authentic self, rooted in divine essence, emerges. In this space, a woman does not seek to be chosen. She realizes she was never meant to compete, only to remember who she is when everything external falls away. The journey inward is not easy. It requires courage to face the void without trying to fill it. But spiritual wisdom shows us that this silence is not a punishment. It is a portal. It is the place where the feminine rises not as an object of desire, but as a sovereign soul embodying her full light. And that light, once revealed, is not dependent on touch or approval. It is sustained by truth. Have you ever embraced silence and felt your soul begin to speak? If so, share your experience in the comments below to inspire others on their journey. If not, comment, "I will listen within," to begin this sacred path of spiritual awakening together. 2. Celibacy and withdrawal are portals, not punishments. Periods of celibacy are not a punishment. They are portals of deep transformation. In those quiet seasons where the body withdraws from external touch and the noise of desire, something ancient stirs within. Abstinence is not about denial, but about transmutation. It is the sacred act of turning your energy inward, allowing it to feed your soul rather than seeking fulfillment from temporary sources. This internal redirection creates a shift, one that frees you from roles imposed by society and births a version of you that is no longer defined by external validation. Carl Jung taught that repressed energy never disappears, it transforms. When desire is not acted upon, it doesn't fade, it rises. It becomes vision, insight, and spiritual depth. In the silence of the body, the unconscious finds space to surface. The soul begins to speak. Your intuition sharpens. Dreams become vivid. A subtle electricity moves through your being. You begin to sense a presence within yourself that was always there, waiting to be remembered. This is the beginning of individuation, not fitting in, but becoming whole. Society often fears a woman who no longer seeks validation because she is no longer controllable. She becomes unpredictable, sovereign, self-sourced. Her energy, once poured into others, now nourishes her creativity, her insight, her power. She stops being a mirror for someone else's desires and begins to reflect the divine within herself. When you choose abstinence, consciously or not, you reclaim your energetic field. You begin to glow, not because someone desires you, but because you've turned your gaze inward and lit a fire from within. Maya, a modern woman, experienced this firsthand. After a breakup, she chose solitude. No dating, no distractions. What emerged from that stillness was not emptiness, but abundance. She began to write, to heal, to listen. Her soul became louder than the noise of the world. She wasn't retreating, she was returning. And when she finally re-emerged, she was not the same woman. She was whole. This is the spiritual wisdom behind abstinence. It is not about giving something up, but about gaining yourself back. It is a rite of passage, an alchemical process where the raw material of desire is refined into presence, awareness, and inner power. The silence of the body is not a void. It is a sacred space where the soul begins to speak, not in words, but in knowing. You don't lose yourself in withdrawal. You find the parts of you that were buried beneath the noise. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to share it with someone who's also learning to reclaim their energy and power. Let's break the myth that celibacy is punishment and show the world that silence, stillness, and sovereignty are sacred. Together, we're rewriting the story. 3. This inner journey marks the beginning of individuation. When a woman stops seeking to be chosen and finally chooses herself, she initiates one of the most profound transformations in her life. According to Carl Jung, this marks the beginning of individuation, a deep inner journey toward wholeness where she confronts and integrates the shadow, the unmet needs, and the unconscious patterns that have silently shaped her. This is not just a psychological shift, it is the essence of a spiritual awakening. The moment she turns inward, something powerful begins to stir. Her silence is not a sign of absence, but of presence. It's the sacred space where the soul, long ignored, finally begins to speak. Choosing oneself means no longer measuring worth by someone else's recognition. It means stepping away from the exhausting chase for validation and instead learning to witness one's own light. This is where spiritual wisdom begins to grow. In the stillness, stripped of distractions, the truth surfaces. The energy once poured into being wanted now returns inward, nourishing forgotten dreams, healing emotional wounds, and awakening buried intuition. As Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." The awakening is not sudden. It's slow and quiet, unfolding like dawn after a long night. In this sacred silence, many women report changes that seem mystical. Their dreams become more symbolic, their instincts sharper, their presence more magnetic. These are not coincidences. They are echoes of the soul reclaiming its voice. Abstinence, whether emotional, physical, or energetic, creates a container for deeper truths to rise. It is in this inner retreat that the fragmented parts of the self begin to return home. The body no longer runs toward quick pleasures. It listens. The mind no longer chases noise. It rests. And in this return, the woman discovers something radical. She was never incomplete to begin with. Individuation is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It is the sacred rebellion of no longer settling for crumbs of attention. It is the spiritual maturity to sit in solitude, not with fear, but with reverence. The woman who walks this path does not become harder. She becomes more open, but discerning, more loving, but boundaries. Her energy becomes medicine, not because she performs for it, but because she embodies it. She becomes a mirror to others, reflecting back what they have forgotten in themselves. When the body goes silent, the soul is finally heard. And in that silence, a woman finds not emptiness, but expansion. Not lack, but presence. Not loneliness, but truth. This is spiritual awakening in its rawest form, Not loud or dramatic, but quiet, honest, and irreversible. Are you ready to choose yourself and begin the journey toward wholeness? If so, comment below. I choose myself, to affirm your commitment to this path of individuation and spiritual wisdom. Let's walk this journey together. 4. The pain of disconnection is a necessary rite of passage. Pulling away from relationships and societal expectations can feel like being exiled from everything familiar. There's an ache, almost unbearable at times, that surfaces when a woman chooses to disconnect from the noise of the world. She may feel invisible in a room full of people, misunderstood by those she once trusted, even judged for walking a path that others cannot see. But this pain is not a mistake. It's a sacred invitation. This is not isolation. This is immersion. She is not breaking down. She is being drawn inward. What feels like emotional death is actually the first breath of spiritual awakening, a silent rite of passage that only the brave accept. In the quiet, where distractions fade and the external world loses its grip, something ancient begins to stir. It's the soul whispering beneath years of conditioning and roles she was told to play. Carl Jung taught that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and that becoming often begins in the dark. The discomfort she feels is not a void, but a passage narrow, sacred, and necessary. She is not vanishing. She is shedding. The woman who felt small is dissolving, so the woman who is whole can rise. The absence of affection, of being needed, of being desired, it all begins to carve out space. Not emptiness, but expansion. In that space, she meets herself in ways she never could when her body was tethered to fleeting touch or superficial validation. Her inner voice grows louder. Her dreams become messengers. Her instincts sharpen. Emotional clarity begins to replace emotional chaos. What once looked like a season of suffering reveals itself as spiritual wisdom in disguise. This is not just about abstaining from physical intimacy. It's about abstaining from self-abandonment. It's about choosing the raw, unfiltered presence of your own soul over the comfort of shallow connection. And it is in this brave silence that she begins to transmute pain into power, confusion into clarity, and absence into sacred presence. The old version of her, built on performance and approval, fades away. What rises is a woman rooted in inner truth, unshaken, whole, and fully alive. If you're walking through the pain of disconnection, know that you're not alone. It's a sacred passage, not a punishment. Subscribe to our channel and join a community that honors your transformation. Here, we explore the depths of spiritual rebirth and remind each other that solitude can be a gateway to profound presence. You are not forsaken, you are becoming. 5. She learns to love from wholeness, not from need. She no longer bends to be loved, nor does she twist herself into shapes that make others comfortable. In the quiet space she's created away from the noise of constant validation seeking, she begins to feel something deeper, the power of her own presence. Her transformation didn't come from another person's approval, but from the sacred stillness of being alone. As Carl Jung wisely said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." And now, in turning inward, she awakens to a truth she had forgotten she is already whole. No longer ruled by the fear of abandonment or the need to prove her worth, she stops searching for love to fill a gap. She's done performing. She's done waiting for a text, a nod, or a half-hearted commitment. Instead, she pours that energy back into herself. Through long walks without a destination, through journaling that reveals buried emotions, through meditations that bring her home to her breath, she rediscovers herself. The silence of abstinence isn't emptiness, it's spaciousness. And in that space, the soul begins to speak. When she finally opens her heart again, it will not be an act of desperation. It will not be a cry for rescue. It will be a grounded offering from someone who has made peace with her own shadows. Love will no longer be a transaction, a compromise of her essence. It will be a dance between two whole beings, not halves seeking completion, but full energies drawn together by resonance, not need. She has learned that the right love doesn't ask her to shrink. It invites her to expand. There's no more proving, no more shrinking, no more settling for affection that feels like a negotiation. Her new form of love is not loud or desperate. It is calm, radiant, and magnetic. It flows from abundance, not lack. It comes not to save her, but to meet her. Carl Jung's work reminds us that healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who we truly are before the world taught us to be afraid. This is the spiritual wisdom born from choosing stillness over chaos, presence over performance, wholeness over need. The woman who once searched outside now listens within. She no longer asks, "Will they love me?" Instead, she declares, "I love me." And that truth reshapes everything. Do you resonate with this kind of love, one that flows from wholeness, not desperation? If so, declare it boldly in the comments. I love from abundance, not need. Let's inspire each other to choose empowered, conscious love. Six, she becomes a beacon of feminine power. She no longer waits to be chosen. She radiates from within. The awakened woman moves differently, not because she's louder, but because her silence carries truth. She doesn't seek validation in the eyes of others. Instead, her presence speaks volumes. There's a quiet confidence in her that makes people pause. What once felt like loneliness now feels like liberation. What once seemed like a void is now sacred space. She has become the embodiment of feminine power, one that does not ask, but simply is. Her silence is not absence, it is pure presence. It's not weakness, it's energetic strength. In a world that constantly demands women to perform, please, and prove, she dares to stop performing. And when the body stops performing, the soul finally steps in. As Carl Jung wisely said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that becoming often begins when you no longer distract yourself from your own truth. The silence she embraces is not punishment. It is initiation. This is not just about abstinence in the physical sense. It's an energetic withdrawal from anything that disconnects her from her essence. The noise of romantic pursuit, the need for attention, the craving for approval, she releases them all. And in doing so, she begins to hear something else, her own voice. Her intuition sharpens, her dreams grow vivid, her inner world becomes alive. Without the distraction of external touch, she begins to touch parts of herself that had never been felt before. She remembers, she reconnects, she rises. In this inward journey, she becomes more than a woman. She becomes a mirror, a living reflection for those still trapped in cycles of pleasing and performing. She doesn't preach. She doesn't convince. Her life becomes the sermon. Her walk becomes the message. She inspires without trying, teaches without speaking, leads by simply existing in alignment. She doesn't beg to be seen. Her light is undeniable. Her energy speaks first. This is spiritual awakening in motion. It's not always loud, and it doesn't always look like enlightenment. Sometimes it looks like solitude, like saying no, like disappearing for a while. But beneath it all, a profound transformation is taking place. She is no longer performing life. She is living it. And so, she becomes the quiet revolutionary. Not because she raises her fist, but because she no longer lowers her energy to be accepted. Her silence becomes her protest. Her softness becomes her shield. Her boundaries become her altar. She walks in self-possession, not because she has something to prove, but because she has nothing left to chase. She is whole. She is here. And she is leading a silent revolution through her being. To honor your rising feminine power, declare it with intention. Comment below, "I radiate power," and let your voice encourage others to rise with grace, strength, and quiet revolution. Seven, the body's silence is the soul's language. The silence of the body is not a void. It is the hidden doorway to a deeper world within. What many perceive as emptiness is often the first sacred signal that the soul is beginning to stir. When a woman no longer seeks external stimulation when she withdraws, not in defeat, but in instinct, what emerges is not weakness, but the first ripple of her spiritual awakening. She may not even recognize it at first, but the longing, the restlessness, the desire to retreat are signs that her inner self is preparing to rise. In those quiet hours, when the body stops reaching for pleasure or approval, something miraculous happens. The energy that once chased affection is no longer scattered outward. It begins to gather inward. Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Yet here, in this particular kind of silence, there is not just pain, there is clarity. There is expansion. What was once repressed begins to find new form. The energy stored in abstinence, consciously or not, begins to refine itself into perception, creativity, and vision. This is why so many women, after seasons of celibacy or solitude, report more vivid dreams, stronger intuition, or a sudden sense of meaning they cannot explain. It is not coincidence. It is the soul claiming space. And in that space, the woman begins to hear herself again. Her real self is not the version trained to please or perform, but the self that waits in the quiet, whole and untouched. The body's stillness becomes a ritual of remembrance. She sees that she is not missing anything. She is actually returning to everything she lost when she was too noisy, too distracted, too eager to give. Abstinence is not simply the absence of touch. It is the presence of power. When you no longer allow others to constantly access your energy, your clarity sharpens. You start to recognize who drains you, what dims your light, and where you've been giving away pieces of yourself without pause. The woman who once needed affection to feel worthy now becomes the woman who protects her peace like it is gold. This is not resistance. It is rebirth. The truth is, not every desire deserves to be fulfilled. Not every connection is sacred. The body, when left alone long enough, begins to detox from false love and empty attention. You stop craving what once comforted you because it no longer vibrates with your truth. And in that vacuum, you begin to feel a different rhythm, slower, deeper, wiser. You start remembering what it feels like to belong to yourself. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that transformation doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers in the dark. in the places no one else sees. And when the body finally quiets, the soul does not shout, it simply speaks. And if you're brave enough to listen, it will guide you home. If this message has stirred something deep within you, affirm your journey by commenting, "I trust the soul's whispers. My silence is sacred." Your words may inspire another woman to honor her inner voice. And so, when the body falls into silence, it does not signify absence, it invites presence. In that stillness, the soul begins to whisper its deepest truths. As Jung reminded us, the unconscious always finds a way to speak, especially when the distractions fall away. Whether you're on a path of abstinence by choice or by circumstance, remember, this may not be a void. It may be a portal to self-discovery, clarity, and spiritual awakening. If this message stirred something within you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the profound truths we explore in our upcoming videos. Your journey inward is sacred. Walk it with awareness, and you may just meet your soul there.